difficult for them to extract themselves from the domination of the Russians and come back to us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Booker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, thank you very much for being with us today. I've appreciated your commentary on everything from the situation in Gaza to the situation in Haiti. I want to pick up where Senator Barrasso did on issues regarding Africa. You know, I've been traveling across the continent, and the thing that always affects me is the enormity of the potential. And I know we're dealing with the crises of today. The truth of the matter is, by 2050, as you know, 1 out of every 4 human beings on the planet will be on the African continent. 1 out of every 3 working age humans will be on the African continent. It is a continent with vast resources, vast human potential, and it is, in many ways, the investments we make today will help to deal with a lot of the challenges when it comes to democracy and, unfortunately, global competition with countries like China and Russia that do not share the world order's rules, clearly. And I was appreciating what you said to the senator about what it is to how we're trying to deal with the democratic threats. Obviously, the backsliding in Burkina Faso, in Niger, in Mali, all in the Sahel region has me very, very concerned. And seeing the challenges that are now in Togo, Benin, Ghana, in the north of those countries, including Nigeria, it's very sobering to me when it comes to the challenges of democracy. I was very affirmed by your fiscal year 2025 budget request that includes $411 million for democracy, rights, and governance programs in Africa. It's a sizable increase from the $284 million allocated in fiscal year 2023. Could you just talk a little bit to how the administration is adjusting regional assistance programs and priorities in response to the democratic backsliding that I've discussed and clearly others?
Thank you very much. And look, exactly as you've said, Senator, and as I know you've been deeply engaged on, we see the extraordinary positive potential in Africa, not just the challenges of the moment. And for us, when we have a continent that's going to have 1 out of every 4 people on Earth on that continent, when we see the fastest growing populations on Earth, before COVID, actually, the fastest growing economies, as you know, we want to make sure that we are supporting that positive evolution, and particularly making sure that young people with growing populations have positive outlets and positive opportunities. But you're right, we also see this democratic backsliding, particularly in the Sahel, and that's where we've had these recent coups. So we have to be, and our budget reflects this, committed to longer-term stability, opportunity, human development, making the investments in health, in education, in economic empowerment, in democratic governance in these countries. We're working to do that. Obviously, in the countries that have been on the receiving end of coups, there's some limits that we have to abide by when it comes to the assistance we can continue to provide, but we're trying to make sure that when it comes to what's vital, we're providing it. But then on democracy more broadly, we just came from our 3rd Summit for Democracy that Korea hosted, and this was not exclusive to Africa, but I think there's a very positive, affirmative agenda for the kinds of things that we can do and are doing to try to shore up democratic governance, to try to shore up the institutions, to try to combat corruption, which saps at
absolutely, and I'm encouraged by that, the focus on corruption. A lot of people are focusing just on elections. It seems that the administration is making such a significant investment in anti-corruption efforts, as well as other things that make for a vibrant democracy, and I'm grateful for that. I just want to, obviously, as you can imagine, talk about Sudan. It was perhaps one of the most, the enormity of what I saw when I was at the Chad-Sudan border is like nothing I've seen before. And I've traveled to refugee camps from the Syrian-Jordanian border to even the camps at the border in Mexico right now. But I've just never seen a scale of human suffering like that. I'm grateful for Tom Perriello and the President's appointment of a special envoy. But is the department providing that special envoy the kind of budget they need or the authority over any Sudan program funds to support his work?
The short answer is I believe we are, and Tom Perriello has done an extraordinary job getting out of the gate fast, and moving to do what we can to tackle this crisis. I agree with you. I think, unfortunately, it's something that's not gotten the visibility that that it deserves, given the amount of suffering that's going on. You've got 8.5 million displaced people. You have 18 million people in desperate need of food aid. And, of course, you have the violence and atrocities that are being committed by both sides against innocent civilians. So, Senior Envoy Perriello is fully authorized and, by the way, reports directly to me and works in close collaboration with our Assistant Secretary for Africa to work to press for an end to the war, to make sure that we have unhindered access for humanitarian assistance, to stop the violence, to try to get a return to the democratic transition, to get a unified civilian approach to this. We think the best vehicle for trying to move forward on that is through the Jeddah process or Jeddah negotiations.
And getting all the players.
And getting everyone around the table.
Same table.
Exactly.
I want to just jump in with my final minute. First of all, thank you for your comments on the ICC recent actions. I think you called it wrong-headed. I would completely agree with the administration's comments on it. It seems to violate common sense that you have a negotiation going on. It could really undermine the resolution of this when you have a terrorist leader like Sinwar being put in, it's sort of equating them to a leader of a duly elected leader who actually has regular elections. But more importantly, we know that Sinwar is doing everything he can to isolate Israel, to put themselves on the same footing. The jurisdictional issues, the challenges we have right now with trying to bring this conflict to a resolution, it seems stunning to me that they would take this action. I want to just, though, ask you is how is the Biden administration working with Israeli, Egyptian, and humanitarian counterparts to implement a deconfliction mechanism to protect humanitarian workers and civilians, even if or when a ceasefire is reached, without really a mechanism the suffering is going to continue. We need a humanitarian assistance at a large scale. One of the biggest concerns any caring American should have right now is the scale of the humanitarian crisis going on in Gaza. This is not counter to dealing with Hamas, but it is urgent right now at levels that have been mentioned by some of my colleagues who are just, the scale of the human suffering there is stunning. The lack of medical provisions, the lack of food. And so there has to be a more coordinated effort amongst the administration to work with Israel, Egypt, and other humanitarian counterparts to make sure that, ceasefire or not, we have the mechanisms to get aid there.
I would ask that you give a brief response.
Simply put, there is, Senator, an intensely coordinated effort to work to do just that. And we have a senior envoy. It had been Ambassador David Satterfield. Now it's Lise Grande, deeply experienced in these matters, working this every single day to do three things. To make sure that we have the aid that is getting in and the appropriate crossings, land, sea, air, to get it in. Second, to make sure that once it gets in, it's effectively distributed to the places and people who need it. And third, and related to that, having effective deconfliction so that the humanitarians who have to move things around aren't endangered, as we've seen. And there, I think progress has been made on having this deconfliction and coordination at a sort of 10,000-foot level, but where we continue to have problems is at the tactical or unit level. That is, individual military units that have not adequately gotten the instructions that they need to have a convoy go through. So we're working intensely to get clear, protected corridors, clear times where there's no doubt, no ambiguity about people moving humanitarian assistance to the people who need it, among other things, as well as better real-time communications between those who are providing the assistance and those who are on the ground engaged in combat.
Senator Young.
Mr. Secretary, it's great to have you before the committee.